Thanks. My name is Tim. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Tim.
David just mentioned before the meeting an analogy that, sorry, people quite a long way back, so I'll speak up. An analogy about alcoholism, that alcoholism is a lot like dancing with a gorilla. You're not done dancing until the gorilla is done dancing. Alcohol started causing me problems as soon as I started to drink. But it didn't occur to me to even try to stop until several years in. And I know from this, if I were to start again, it might not occur to me to stop again. I become someone else when I've had a drink. I become someone who doesn't want to be sober. I become someone that doesn't care about the consequences. The real person is locked inside, but I become someone else. I think analogies are good for this sort of thing. In Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, so the story is referred to very briefly in the big book. In Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll is the doctor who creates this potion, and he takes this potion. When he takes the potion, he becomes the monster. And he becomes the monster in order to do all of the things that he wants to do but feels he can't as himself, which is interesting in itself. I identify with that. Because I wasn't a pleasant drinker. I was rangy. I couldn't just sit there with other people, have a nice time. A few drinks in, I wanted trouble, and I found it. But towards the end of the book, he discovers himself I hope this isn't a spoiler, but he finds himself turning into the monster without having to take the potion. And so the character I developed as a drinking alcoholic gradually became my character, drunk or sober. So when I got sober for a while, I didn't turn into the person I'd been before I ever drank. I was something else entirely. I've been to 3 AA events over the last, or 3 recovery events over the last few days. I went to a workshop, a Cocaine Anonymous workshop in Birmingham on Thursday. I was at the Welsh National Convention of AA yesterday in Llandrindod, Wales, which took me months to learn how to say. I've been saying Llandrindod, Wales my whole life, and it takes a while to relearn it when you've been getting it wrong. And you see lots and lots of people, and it's a wonderful thing. I've seen some people I haven't seen in AA for a very long time, people who've left London and retired, as seems to be obligatory to the Cotswolds. And it's very good, but there are an awful lot of people who I knew when I was new, and we don't know where any of them are. And I know a lot have left London, and some have died sober, and this is a wonderful thing that they got through to the end. But staying sober forever, and I know one does it one day at a time, but one mustn't blind oneself to the objective, which is never to have another alcoholic drink again, which is my objective, because if I were to drink, I might never stop. So I must never have another alcoholic drink. So we're looking at how to do it, how to do something which is going to last forever. And you handle it a day at a time, but it needs to be durable, because one mistake and that's the end of you, potentially. And it's not obvious, it's not straightforward that simply by going to meetings that's going to happen. So I've had to approach my sobriety in something of a tactical military fashion. What's going to give me the best tactical odds against my alcoholism? And I think I learned an awful lot in my first year in AA, which was 1993. I learnt an awful lot in my first year. Firstly, from my own inability to stay sober, even though I was going to AA for the first 6 months of that year. And secondly, watching a lot of people around me. I had no what do they call them? Boundaries. Well, I had no boundaries when I was drinking, but least said about that, the better. But I had no boundaries when I got sober. So I just made friends with everyone. I was like a Labrador. Entirely undiscriminating. So I made lots and lots of, I wouldn't say friends, but acquaintanceships with people. And over that first year, my God, the drop-off rate by the end of the first year was huge. And so one's got these worked examples everywhere. What works, what doesn't work. And you know, God love everyone. One wishes the best for everyone, but one can learn from anything. And what I learnt in that first year, it is a very unfashionable idea, I think, in contemporary society, which seems to be so much about self-actualization and following your dreams and trusting yourself and all of those things. I don't know about you, I'm an absolute liability to myself. I was a liability to myself when I was drinking, and I'll tell you a little story. I can be a liability to myself sober. I've been in a particular occupation for the best part of 25 years, and it's been fine for many years, but I've noticed as the world has changed, for many years I refused to change with it. I was very inflexible when it came to certain business practices in my industry, if you can call it that, and certain technological things. I don't like this. Why can't everything be nice like it used to be? And gradually painting myself into a corner. Now, when push comes to shove, I know better now. I know to ask God what to do, and I asked God what to do, and I was gotten out of the corner I'd painted myself into. But I'm not my own best friend. All of those work decisions I made were perfectly rational, perfectly reasonable. Everyone agreed with me, but not in my best interests or in anyone else's. In a very quiet way, things drifted and got difficult. And I've been gotten out of it, everything is fine, and I'm motoring again, as it were. But the point is, at no point do I ever reassume the role of the highest authority in my life. I absolutely mustn't. And I don't think that's because there's anything particularly wrong with me. I mean, I have alcoholism, but the alcoholism was arrested by taking the steps very solidly, very thoroughly, and doing that more than once, by the way. When I was about 15 years sober, I realised there were gaps in my programme and my understanding of the principles of it. You could drive a Sherman tank through. And I was one of those wretched people who goes around big book meetings trying to water it down, saying, well, of course, you know, Bill was the marketing man, so one must take with a pinch of salt these rather extravagant promises, and, you know, life's not like that, is it? Thinking I was this sort of great wise grandee. The fact is, I hadn't done half the things he suggested you needed to do to get the results he said you'd get. And this is why I wasn't getting the results. You see, not very bright. You can be clever without being bright. Those are very different things. You can be perfectly logical in a tiny little universe like that, and it all makes sense inside your own little bubble, but it's completely mad. No one can fault your logic, but it's the frame is wrong. You're missing everything. So, you know, many years in, I decided, let's test out this big book. Right, you've got these promises all the way through after every step. Let's test it out. Let's, when I get to an idea, say, I'm going to believe that idea. I'm not going to test it. I'm not going to audit the idea. I'm not going to question it intellectually. I'm just going to believe it. And I'll give you an example of one I made the decision to believe. It's on page 28. It's a terribly good one. And this is to paraphrase it. I'm not going to try and recall the the whole thing precisely, but effectively, we're all the children of a living creator with whom we can form a relationship on simple and understandable terms, as long as we're willing enough to try. And someone said to me, if you're the child of the higher power, that means you're made of the same substance as the higher power. So you think you're flesh and blood, running around a material world, being a physical being, like a mackerel or an avocado or something, but just a talking one. And this line says, no, you're not. You're spirit. You're non-material, but you happen to be operating through a physical body the same way that a Radio 3 programme operates through a radio set. The orchestra isn't inside the radio. You're hearing it through the radio. I'm not inside my physical body. You're hearing and seeing me through the physical body and vice versa. So that's just one little line. I just skipped over that. And there are hundreds of those. The programme is not just nuts and bolts of things to do, it's ideas to take on board. Anyway, cut a long story short, I decided to just pretend that they put what they put in the book because it was true, that it's not true because they happened to put it in the book, it's the other way around. They said, oh my God, here's this true thing, let's put it in the book. I approached it on that basis and also decided to dot the I's and cross the T's with the actions. And I think people in AA are terribly good at doing inventory. And sometimes it's a little bit like the little porridge pot. You don't know what the magic word is to get them to stop. These people that phone you up every 5 minutes, I've done some more inventory. And you have to listen to the dreadful thing. And it seems to go on forever. But the point is, at some point you're supposed to change, and then you won't be repeating yourself. If you change, you won't have to write it down again. And writing it down, you have to write it down to remember it, so when you say it to someone, you don't forget. But the writing, you have to actually change your behaviour. You have to change your thing. I have to pull myself up short and say, no, we're not going to think about that, because that doesn't do us any good. I get very cross about things. And I have to treat myself like a child. No, or a dog. Drop. Drop. You have to tug at it and eventually it lets go. We're good at inventory. I think certainly most people I know are less good at amends. And I used to come out with these wonderful spiritual lines like, well, I shall make that amend in God's time. It is very good because you can put it off almost indefinitely then. And apologies if you've heard this story, but a chap went to a rabbi, took his coat to a tailor's and said to the tailor, can you mend my coat? And the tailor said, God willing, it will be ready tomorrow. And the rabbi comes back and the tailor says, I'm afraid it's not ready, but God willing, it'll be ready tomorrow. Rabbi comes back, coat still not mended. The tailor goes in with God willing, and the rabbi interrupts him and says, and if we leave God out of it this time, when will it be ready? And it's like that with my amends. And so I decided a number of years to look for all the people that hadn't quite made it to the list but should have. All of the little things scratching around the back of my consciousness. I was instructed to go through my entire life from now working backwards. Whenever a face that I recalled or a situation caused me any discomfort, to ask, was my behaviour ideal or not? If my behaviour was irreproachable, fine. But if it wasn't, go and find the person, make amends, give the book back, give the money back, repair the damage, whatever it was. And I found scores of these things which hadn't made it through. And so I've learned how to be incredibly thorough with this. And the marvellous thing is, once you've been really, really thorough once, keeping yourself in a reasonably fit state is actually pretty easy, because you're not spending your whole life. Imagine a boat with holes shot in the bottom of it, and you having to spend your whole time scooping out the water because water is constantly flooding in. This is the problem. When I permit secrets, resentments, and unmade amends and ongoing harm to persist in my life, I spend my whole time mopping up the emotional effects and all of the compensatory actions that I'm doing to block those from my consciousness. It's very tiring, very time-consuming. Get that sorted out and, frees up the whole afternoon. One seems to have so much more physical energy and psychic energy. And what I get done in my life now is incredible. So the point is to do this thoroughly. And then my life today, I don't know very much at all except how to do this thoroughly. I've got a little job where my other half, when people ask him, what does Tim do for a living? He says he does typing. And he's changed it recently. He says he does spelling. Because effectively, it's what I do. You're writing words, you're spelling words out one by one. And sometimes he refers to it simply as tap, tap, because that's what he hears from the other, tap, 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 tap. And that's about the level I keep it. I don't have any notions of myself having something. Have you ever known anyone with a career? It's an awful, awful thing to have. They seem so unhappy, these people with career. Always talking about their careers with their long faces, all tired and stressed. And the sighing and the eye. I don't want one of those. I just want a job where I go and do some things and then they give me some money and then I go home again. It's lovely. It's very nice. I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have to worry about anything because God is doing the worrying for me. I heard someone say a long time ago that they don't have problems anymore, which of course is a little bit of a controversial statement. But he says when he has something come along which looks as though it might be a problem, he immediately says to God, well, you're going to have to handle this. I have no idea how to handle this. You handle this. So it's now God's problem. It's not your problem. You're simply to ask God on a daily basis what to do, if anything, about the problem. And not to do this sort of complex meditation where you're trying to sort of pull back the curtain because all you find is the Wizard of Oz pulling the little levers. The universe doesn't reveal its secrets that easily, Buster. So I don't try and do that. I don't try and divine the future. I don't try to access higher realms in prayer and meditation. I'm interested in knowing what I'm to do today. And most of the time, I ask God what to do about this, what to do about that, what to do about Neville, what to do about Sally, what to do about when I'm 90. And I get a resounding silence. This doesn't mean I've done something wrong. It just means it's none of my business right now. If I need to do something, I'll be told. Very simple. If I'm not being told, it's because I don't need to know. And I can't shake God by the lapels and say, you need to tell me, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So I think that the message of how I've stayed sober for going on for 33 years is I just remember the creosote advert. Just do what it says on the tin, and it'll do what it says on the tin. I just did what it said in the book, and it sorted things out. And here's the funny thing: you don't have to get well to stay sober. There's an entire fallacy there, because when I committed to the program, I threw the towel in and said, I don't care what my head says anymore. Not interested in what my head says anymore. I'm just going to do what AA says. As soon as that happened, I stopped relapsing. I wasn't yet well. I think I was well spiritually, which meant that I had the right relationship to me and the right relationship to God. The right relationship to me was staying in my lane, attending to the small things that I could attend to on a daily basis. and minding my own business, keeping my nose out of other people's business, keeping my nose out of the past, keeping my nose out of the future, keeping my nose out of the world, keeping my nose out of my own life, keeping my own nose out of who I think I am. Who I am, my identity, is other people's business, it's not mine. So all of the labels have gone off me. I used to have a lot of labels, medical and non-medical, and I don't want to swear, but I can't be effed with any of those. I won't be reduced to a little shopping list of things that I am. Because I've always been put in boxes, and it's not comfortable, and it's not real, and it's not true. You could list every single box I'm put in, all the diagnoses, you wouldn't know a damn thing about me. You spend 5 minutes with a person, you spend a minute with a person, you get a sense of who they are, and you wouldn't be able to write it down. So the reality of the person is completely different. The boxes are useful for filling in applications and getting funding for things. But that's kind of insurance billing purposes, censuses, but they're not for my life. It's about recognising my humanity. And what I've found amazing in AA is people I haven't much cared for and who I've had nothing in common with have been immensely useful to me. And it's made me realise how prejudiced I am against people who are different in various sorts of ways. But the simplicity really is to say, all I know is one thing today, which is how to do the programme and how to carry it to other people. So lots of people do lots of service in the service structure. I've done that, and I'm conference delegate and so on. But now I just stick to sponsoring people, really, and going to meetings, doing a little bit of prayer and meditation, and that's it. Nothing fancy, nothing highfalutin. And I haven't had a drink all day, not even beer. So something is... not even beer. So something is working. Thanks for listening. I look forward to hearing what you all have to say.